Okay, welcome back to our Art Impulse lecture, the last lecture for Unit 10, and probably our last Art Impulse lecture for this course. And when we last left off, we had just kind of done a quick survey of history going back to the beginning of the Baroque, going through the Romantic period, and basically just looking through the lens of where we see moments where art and the conversation about art is kind of self-aware, where art becomes to a certain degree about art itself. And we talked about how, like in the, let's say, the Caravaggio and Carracci divide, or the Delacroix and Ang divide, that was more kind of like a dialogue that others made about art using the artist, but not so much that the artists did themselves. But as we moved into the 19th century, it became more and more a conscious thing that artists realized they were making art that was saying something about art to other artists, and therefore making a statement about the direction that art was going in. That becomes very explicit in the beginning of the 20th century, where all of a sudden we have an explosion of these different art movements. And you can look at this list, and each art movement here, to a certain degree, some more than others, but many of them are really kind of like a definite attempt at saying this is the way art should go. This is what art should be about. Um, some maybe are a little bit more scaled back, a little bit more local. Like De Bruyne is maybe less about art as a whole, but more just this is what we're doing here. But a lot of these, like suprematism or futurism, really saw themselves as movements that were going to set the direction for art, and that what they were figuring out, what they were achieving, was the path. And so then that leads to I kind of like, I'm going to skip looking at all of that 20th century art. I mean, we're basically just going to have that all here, and then we're going to go right into kind of the end of the 20th century and into contemporary art. And so in the contemporary art period now, it has become kind of accepted that art is about art, that art is a reaction to art, and that art is a statement about art, about what is good art, what is bad art, that art is a statement about what direction art should go in. So here's one example we've already seen. We saw this in the Art and Power lecture, right, where looking at um, the war prints, etchings by Goya, and then the Jack and Chapman uh, sculpture piece based off of that, or an artist like Andrew Grassi, who very much makes art that is in various ways kind of a commentary about what is art and what is good art, and but and very much kind of open-ended. Like, it's easy to look at his work and think, oh well, since he's a traditional painter and he's very tight and controlled, and then he's making these images of these very kind of non-objective installations in a gallery space, that must mean that he's critiquing them. But I'm not sure that's true. I think that they are very much a statement of love of the art world, a love of installation, even when it's work that's very different from his. And I think you can see Kehinde Wiley's work. I mean, you can look at Kehinde Wiley's work in a lot of different ways. You can see it as being primarily making a social statement, primarily a statement about race, but also a statement about globalism, about people, But you can also see it as a statement about art, that he's taking art historical references and then kind of flipping them, using them in new ways to make you rethink. I mean, one of the things that you really start to realize as you look at these is how much of these structures of these paintings that we just automatically look at, how much of those structures are really just expressions of power. So a painting like this, remember we saw this painting in our very first unit in this course, and probably the second or third lecture that we had in this course, we saw this painting. And it is in a way a commentary about art. He is to a certain degree mocking the aspirations, the ambitions of the abstract expressionists, aiming to try to make art that's just purely about gesture and about expression. And here he's saying, look, I could take an expression and make it just, very much about mechanical reproduction. And like I said before in that unit, what we see in Glenn Brown's work is a very similar kind of critique and parody going on here, where he's taking the ideas that you see in someone like Frank Auerbach's work. And what's interesting to me now, thinking about these two paintings in the context of this lecture, is that both artists are in a way making statements about what direction, what art should be about, and what values are important in art. Right? Auerbach is making the statement that just really looking and being truthful and really and making art about the hard work of trying to do that is what art should be about. And wherever that takes you, if it takes you in a direction where the paintings don't necessarily look all that representational to someone else, that's fine. And what Glenn Brown is saying is that all of that stuff about art being honest and truthful and hardworking is, is rubbish. That art should be about, art is really fundamentally about style, making decisions about how something is going to look, and that anyone can take a style and put it in a new meaning, and or take a new meaning and put it in a new style. And I think now we can see some of the artists we looked at in the painting lecture, like Katerina Gross, and and Angela de la Cruz, that they are also making artwork that is about saying what direction artwork should be going in, right? And what is or isn't painting, right? Katerina Gross's work is very much about kind of expanding the definition of painting. And Julie Moretu's work is very much a dialogue about abstract expressionism. And in some ways, she's taking that same thing that the Lichtenstein started with, but now she's kind of like she's expanding it and making it about this new kind of conceptual space. And like we talked about, Rachel White-Reed is very much part of a dialogue about what is or is not sculpture, and how sculpture has always been about this dialogue between what is positive and what is negative form, and positive and negative volume and space, and how she's making it very much like she's making the negative a very much a positive thing. James Turrell said that like his inspiration was, to a certain degree, was Caravaggio, that he wanted to go back to the beginning where art was about, or painting was about light, right? The creation, the illusion of light. And he wanted to go right back to that beginning point and say, what if I made paintings actually out of light? And so with each of these artists, we see this continuation of this idea of art being about dialogue. Running out a bit of time, so I'm going to head to the very last couple of ones. So I think now you can kind of see with Portrait of Ross that it is very much about a dialogue as to what is a work of art. Can a work of art be something that is completely impermanent, that disappears entirely? Can it still be a work of art? Or a performance, can something where the artist is just, and I think that this is, the title of this piece, The Artist is Present, is in some ways kind of gives away what the commentary part of this piece is about, right? That one of the things she's saying is that all art is about the artist really being present. To make good artwork, the artist has to really be there. And so she's, in the same way that James Turrell is paring away everything that, his all the other stuff that he thought art might be about and just focusing on one thing. Here she's kind of doing the same thing, just paring it all down to this one aspect of art, which is art's about the artist really being in the moment. Which brings us back to this beginning. So here we have this piece, I'm running out of time, but we have a Matthew Barney piece, right, called Drawing Restraint. And it's literally about how all drawing is about what you're aiming to do and what things are holding you back, whether it's the restraints of your body, how you're constructed, or the restraint of like how big a piece of paper you're working on. All right, well, we have to end there. All right, I will see you in the lectures for Unit 11.